I mean, we're talking Pinterest today, so I'll get the cat out of the bag right out of the gate.
And I really love helping other people make money online. And the best way for me to do that is Pinterest.
Give us a high level on where things are at today for you.
The site is back at 100,000 page views a month. So we were into the site for about $10,000 by the end of the year.
Obviously, what's working has changed quite a bit over the years.
Google never clicked for me. I tried really hard.
Whenever you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to a bunch of other things. And so
recently, Pinterest has flatlined that site.
So what's working on Pinterest in today's world?
It's in a niche that is very popular on Pinterest.
You have a wealth of experience doing Pinterest for 10 years now. So
this isn't Google. It doesn't have billions of users. When you are on Pinterest, you are going to them.
When I talk with people about Pinterest, plateauing comes up consistently.
Lots of people don't know that's AI content.
How should a content creator approach this?
I personally hate AI content for my kids. Anyone who doesn't know what it is. Pinterest wants to make the platform more.
All right, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. My name is Jared Bauman, and today we're joined by Carly Campbell. Carly, welcome on board.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here today.
I mean, we're talking Pinterest today, so I'll get the cat out of the bag right out of the gate. And I was telling you before we started that we haven't talked about Pinterest in a while. So I'm really excited to dive into it today with you. You're an expert in this and have been for some time. Tell us about yourself. Tell us maybe a bit of your backstory before you started creating content. And then as we get into the meat and potatoes of the interview.
Okay, sure. So I am now a full-time content creator or instructor in the area of content creation, and I'm also a full-time homeschool mom. And content creation and the internet in general allows for extreme flexibility in my life and allows for us to homeschool, and that's really important to me. Right now, I have been online since early 2016. My first site that I ever figured out how to log into WordPress, that was early 2016. There was actually one before, but I just wasn't committed enough to figure that out. The first one, but my first site, I started it, and my whole purpose was to make money online. I was not interested in sharing myself with the world or sharing a story, or I didn't have a greater mission. My mission was to make money in an above board kind of way. I know that sounds like I might have been up for anything, but I don't mean it that way. I just mean I was willing to try whatever I had to try and learn whatever I had to learn to make money. And my first site was making a full-time income by the end of the first year, which just blew my mind.
Wow.
And yeah, it just really, and when I say full-time income, that means different things to different people. Before I was a content creator, I was a waitress for a decade. So, I mean, a full-time income waitressing is a little bit different than a full-time income as a lawyer. You're probably not going to replace your lawyer income right away in your first year. But I like 4 or 5 times what I was averaging, I think, as a waitress in the first year. And I've never looked back. I can't imagine that I'll ever work for somebody else, doing something else again. I think, I think for as long as the internet exists, there will be ways for smart people to make money online. And I really love helping other people make money online. And the best way for me to do that is Pinterest. That's the thing that clicked for me. Google never clicked for me. I tried really hard.
This episode is brought to you by Ahrefs. If your content team is drowning in outlines, research, and SEO checklists, well, meet your new favorite tool. Ahrefs AI Content Helper streamlines your entire workflow. It uses real SEO data to guide your content before you even start writing, so you can create more high-quality articles, cover more topics, and even reach a bigger audience. It's not about writing for you. It's about helping your team think smarter, faster, and rank higher. You can learn more at ahrefs.com. That's ahrefs.com. All right, now back to the episode. Was Pinterest always the driver for you, even back to that very first site you knew how to log into WordPress with? Back to the first money-making site. Was Pinterest has it always been the driver of traffic and your growth strategy?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I took like a broad foundational online blogging course, and it didn't actually dive into how to get like the actual meat and potatoes of how to get traffic from anywhere. It would just say like, do SEO, do Pinterest, do Instagram. The course was excellent, but the specifics of those weren't excellent. And so there was like 5 of us that were working through it together. We had met in a forum for the course, and we kind of decided to divide and conquer. One of them was going to go learn SEO and bring it back and teach the others, and one of us was going to go learn Facebook and bring it back and teach others, and I got Pinterest. And so I learned Pinterest to take back and teach.
Oh, that's a cool concept.
The girls. Yeah, it was, and it worked really well for me.
I guess you're probably glad you didn't get SEO in the end.
Yeah, it could have been a totally different story.
Not necessarily bad or good, but Pinterest is still humming along here in 2025. I mean, 10 years later. So maybe give us an idea, like, I would probably take a long time to go through all 10 years, but maybe give us a high level on where things are at today for you and what you're doing, what you're involved in today. And then we're going to get into some of the details of how you built what you built, but also what's working on Pinterest in today's world. Because even though Pinterest has been a mainstay for the better part of that decade, obviously what's working has changed quite a bit over the years. But before we get into that, like, where are things at today in your journey with what you're doing, websites you have, et cetera?
So I actually still have the first website that I started
Oh,
in
that's awesome.
2016. Yeah, it's good, and it still gets Pinterest traffic, and it still earns. I mean, compared to waitressing, it still earns a full-time income on its own. I don't do a lot on it myself anymore. The site has been, as I've like moved more and more towards being a Pinterest expert, whatever that is. We've done more and more experimental things on the site. So the site itself is like a hodgepodge of everything. And that's allowed us to learn more about Pinterest and learn more about what works in different niches. We post in all kinds of niches on the site. But it just ticks right along. I have a couple like very small site projects that, you do them as an experiment, and then they just sit there and run in the background. There's a few of those. But recently in July of 2024, so just under a year ago, we started a brand new site. And that site, I would say, is probably one of my main projects right now, largely because it's the most fun I've had in a really long time. Yeah, I love to talk about the Mediavine site some more, because that one it's just been so much fun, and it's fun to talk about, and it really is giving us great concrete information about what's working on Pinterest and what's not. And I actually have one more site that is like fully experimental, doing all the things that I wouldn't necessarily recommend that people do on Pinterest. And recently, Pinterest has flatlined that site, which is another great way to understand what's working and what's not working on Pinterest. It gives me even more confidence in the Mediavine site, to be honest, because we try new ideas over here and they really don't work. And I think that's about it for my sites. I also I support creators in their Pinterest traffic journey. So I've got the Pin Talk podcast with Tony, and I have a membership group for Pinterest creators, and I sell a Pinterest course. I do all that kind of stuff too. And that actually takes up a lot more of my time than my sites do, because that is always, engaging with people, which takes up more time than just publishing content.
I know all about that. I know about that. Let's talk about this new site that you have, and really, to your point, use it as a springboard to talk about what you're seeing working right now in 2025 and beyond. Also, I didn't know, but it sounds like you have a site that you can use as an example for what's not working, perhaps, Kevin.
Well, now, we're gonna get that site. I would still like to see it work, so I'm not quite ready to throw in the towel on it. And we're trying a lot of different things that I haven't had to try before. Most recently, we ran ads on it for 7 days, and then I turned the ads off and let it think about that for 7 days, and that didn't move the needle. And now I'm going to reach out to the ad manager and say like, oh, hey, I was thinking about running ads here, and you can see that we've done that, but clearly this is suppressed. And I can tell that it's suppressed because it's in the same niche as a site that is doing well, that I have the same person making the pins, targeting the same keywords. It's pinning to the same boards because we opened up group boards between the accounts, and these pins still can't get views, but these ones can. So I know that there's an account problem. I don't know what the account problem is, and I would like to know if it's something that I can get Pinterest just to flip a switch on. So we'll try. We'll try before we give up on it.
All right. Well, I already wrote 2 questions down. I'm going to come back to you on that one there. But tell us about the news site, the news site that you have, and give us some indication of the nature behind why you started it, and how quick it was to get traction with Pinterest. And again, I do want to ask that question because I think a lot of people I hear talking about pivoting traffic platforms to Pinterest or looking at investing more in Pinterest. One of the big questions is, in today's environment, how long should we expect a typical account to start to get traction with?
So you're talking about the Mediavine site, the one that started last July. That site, there's so many considerations when it comes to Pinterest, and of course the first foremost consideration is niche. It's in a niche that is very popular on Pinterest. If you want to be seeing traffic success on Pinterest quickly, you can't be niche. This isn't Google. It doesn't have billions of users. It's got a fraction of the users that Google has, and so there's a fraction of the intents that Google has. You can't write about anything and expect your people to come find you. When you are on Pinterest, you are going to them. And so you need to be putting out content that speaks to, you either need to be putting out content that speaks to the most people possible, or you need to accept that your timeline will be a lot longer for Pinterest to finally start to gather the context it needs about your content, just based on engagement. Pinterest is an engagement feedback platform. People engage with the content. Pinterest gathers information about that content and that engagement, and that gives context to this pin. But it also gives context to all the pins around it. And so if you're very niche and there's only 10 people that are going to engage with your pin this week, it's going to take a lot longer to get context and distribution and relationship built up between your pins than people who have 1,000 people that are going to engage with their pin this week. So we started this site in a pretty high up Pinterest niche. I knew there'd be a lot of room for it on the platform, but we also started last July. And when you're putting out content on Pinterest in July, you should be thinking 2-3 months ahead. Mm-hmm. And so we knew we were putting out content for the biggest season of the year on Pinterest. We spent July and August creating Q4 content. That was it. That was our whole focus. And so when we started pinning at the beginning of September, we had 100 Q4 blog posts published and ready to go. And I think I should have checked out the date specifically before we started chatting, but I think it was about 6 weeks before we were accepted with Journey. We made $1,400 on Journey in the first month, and then by early December, we were within Mediavine, and before the year ended, we had earned $4,000 in ad revenue with the site.
Yeah.
And we'd had our first 100,000 page views month.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't $4,000 profit because there was significant cost in putting out 100 pieces of human created. Did I say human created content?
You didn't. You didn't. I was going to ask.
Okay, yeah, 100 pieces of human created content prior to the end of August. There was costs involved, and then we continued publishing throughout the Christmas season as well and the fall season as well. So we were into the site for about $10,000 by the end of the year, but it had made $4,000, and that was enough for me to know that this was the right way forward. And so we just continued on after that, and it's been such a fun site to run. Then January hit, and we had a site that was only 4 months old that only had Q4 content on it. So we started building again in January. But I mean, that's part of it. It's unrealistic to expect that you have a 4-month-old site with 100 pieces of Christmas content that's going to earn well through January, February. So that was expected. It wasn't a big deal. As of yesterday, the site is back at 100,000 page views a month. This time, because we've had more time to build out our content, more of what is sending traffic is Evergreen. And so the drops following the holidays are always a little bit less now. We still see a drop because it's still a new site. This is the first year we've ever published Super Bowl, and it's the first year we've ever published Mother's Day, and it's the first year we've ever published July 4th, and July 4th is going great. And I'm really prepared for that drop on July 5th.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's earning, right now it's earning between $80 and $150 a day, which is fantastic because I'm still having so much fun with the site that I keep putting money into the site, even though that wasn't the long-term plan. And I'm expecting Q4, I'm expecting to hit $250, $300 days, I hope, through Q4. That might be a stretch because it's a 1-year-old site, but we'll see.
How much do you recommend, or perhaps with this site here, how much of the content is focused on seasonal content? July 4th, you mentioned, Q4, Mother's Day, Super Bowl, versus Evergreen. I mean, you tease these things. It was on my list to ask you about, like, and I'm sure it's niche specific. I'm sure it's based on some research and all that. But generally speaking, like, how much effort should people be putting towards seasonal content? You get the big hit, and then January hits, and you're like, oh my goodness, versus focusing on evergreen content, whether it's a percentage or a time allocation?
I think I would have answered this question differently a year ago. And this is my first year in this niche. So my main site, the one I said is still going since 2016. We have a lot of evergreen content on that. There's a lot of pregnancy, postpartum, toddler. There's food content. This year we have a nails post that's doing great on that site. So it's a mixed bag. And when we look at that site, it's easy to see. There will be an increase in traffic for the seasonal stuff we put out. Christmas is really great for that site, but there's never this like wild fluctuations. It's a steady stream of traffic, and that's because it has so much evergreen content. And when we started this Mediavine site, and we did all Q4 content between July and September, and actually all the way up till the beginning of December, we continued publishing Q4. There was a big investment there, a big push there seasonally, and it obviously paid off very well. January, February, March, they're the kind of months that make people quit. I think, when you go from like, I don't remember exactly what it was, 4,000 page views a day to 250 pages a day on January 3rd. You're like, this is brutal. But
and it continues for several months.
Yeah. But because we are doing all human created content, and maybe that's part of the conversation, there's only so much you can do. And so I think if you remind yourself that you want to build your evergreen, you want that out there, you also want to take advantage of your seasonal opportunities, and you have to strike a balance. I mean, maybe I would even say 50-50 at this point, because I can handle this, but a lot of people who are just starting out on Pinterest, they can't handle this. And so if you were to grow it maybe a little bit slower, and a little bit steadier, maybe those swings don't cause the same grief, or the same mental setbacks as they do, if you're just slowly growing. I always think any progress motivates us. And that's what we need, is motivation to keep pressing through, the first 2 years.
You're exactly right. The seasonal content comes with quite a roller coaster, and the highs are amazing. But then, yeah, boy, the drop off, even though you know it's coming. I mean, it doesn't matter, even though you know it's coming. It's brutal. Let me ask you about, you're a year in now, and this will be a question I know a lot of people have. Uh, Updating old content, just going back to old content and creating new pins, leaving old content and continuing to just produce new content. How are you going to start thinking about that going into year two? Now that you have, I would imagine, several hundred articles and posted
450.
450. Okay, so that is a solid base of content. Now going forward, how are you balancing new content versus old content? And again, it's more nuanced than that. Are you updating the old content quite a bit and then creating new pins? Are you creating new pins from old content but not really updating it much? How much time do you put towards that versus new content? I think this is a question that a lot of people continue to have as they approach Pinterest traffic.
So I just spoke with my VA. I did all the pinning and development of that site for the first 4 months. And then after we had gotten where we needed to be with that site, and because the purpose of the site was actually to prove that I could do it. It wasn't actually about growing another site. So once I felt like I had done that, I handed it off to a VA who I trained to do it the way that I was doing it. And we just talked the other day about what she's doing with our fall content from last year. We are already pinning our fall content from last year, for one thing. So it's June. We will get our fall content pinned out by the end of July, and we will be fully Christmas pinning by the beginning of September. We're creating at least one new board, and sometimes more when more is makes sense for the content that we had last year. We're still also pinning to our old boards. And because we've continued to publish, because I'm actually I'm niching out the site now after my year of experience, my first year of experience in this niche, and seeing the fluctuations in the seasonal traffic. We're niching out a little bit to allow for a bit more evergreen content to be created. So because I don't want to hit pause on that, it's probably not possible for us, because it's all human created, it's not possible for us to publish as much fall content as we did last year, or even to pin again for all the fall content that we had last year. So what we've done is this year we've taken our top 10 performing posts from last year. We've made new pins for those ones. We're putting them out. The ones that are like roundup or listicle style, where new content that we've created during the year fits inside those will update with new content, like inside, and repinning those. And then at the same time, we're continuing to create, but like I said, we're creating a little bit less seasonal content this year than we did last year. But that is a strictly like just one of those choices that I had to make. I'm sure the best of both worlds would be to create the same amount of fall content I did last year, plus the other new content. But
well, you talked about having to balance,
yeah.
Whenever you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to a bunch of other things. And so I think that's why when push comes to shove, it's super interesting to see year two, where are you going to put the time into evergreen versus seasonal, into existing content and updating it versus publishing new content. I mean, are there any economies of scale you start to get when you have a base of content like that? Are there any things that start to become a bit of a time saver? Or is it really the same process year in, year out as these accounts grow?
Well, the way that we have strategized our content this year, this past year for this site in particular, is I don't make any standalone piece of content that doesn't have 10 buddies. So when you're creating a Pinterest board, there are 10 other posts that can go on that board already. And when you create a new board, now I don't have to wait to publish 10 more posts that can also go on that board because they're already published. So rather than publishing, I hate the term niche down, actually, as a Pinterest creator. I've never liked niche down as somebody who wasn't SEO focused. And yet what I'm saying sounds like niche down, but I don't want it to, because I'm niching out to the Mediavine site. That's important. On Pinterest, you want to be as broad as possible, but something that we have done that has, I think, made growth quicker is we're not overly niche, but we'll focus on one corner of the niche for some time. When that corner is built out to where we'd like it to be, we'll move on to the next corner. I would never not put something on my site because the site's too niche. This doesn't belong. Don't put that. No, I'm not afraid to have Pinterest think like, oh, this doesn't go here, whatever. But when everything you are working on does go together, you are creating relationship and context faster. Did that answer the question? I felt
It does
like
actually, and it brings up a set of questions. It's perfect because I wanted to ask about that, and I'm trying to think of the right way to ask about it. You see, I hear what you're saying. You're not saying niche down, but that there are benefits from focusing on certain sections of your broader topic. And what does that do with the algorithm? Like, does that help the algorithm of Pinterest better understand your content and show it to more people? Or is it really just more of an economies of scale or a scaling methodology for you, your team, and your content creation process?
So currently, this answer might change depending on when you asked me this over the last year. And I'd love to know what Tony has to say about this. But currently, I would say that the Pinterest algorithm, you talk about, is it helping the algorithm? It's not looking at your account and going, in the SEO days, Google was looking at your site and going, this is a site about swimming pools.
Yep.
That's not what Pinterest is doing.
Right.
But Pinterest is looking at your pin and going, what is this pin related to? You've engaged with this pin. What pin am I going to show you next? Certainly, one of the things that contributes to pin relationship is a creator. So it's just one of the things. If I create a pin about fly fishing and I create a pin about chocolate cake, and then somebody is engaging with my fly fishing pin, and for whatever reason, Pinterest shows them my chocolate cake pin next, they're very likely to skip it because they're not actually related. This person wasn't looking for chocolate cake. But if I create chocolate cake pin and I create 15 fantastic chocolate dessert ideas pin, those naturally have relationship and they naturally are created for the same user. And so when you take your time to plan your content as though it's related, as though it's created for the same user, you definitely take advantage of the algorithm and help it create that relationship faster. But you don't want to be too niche about it because then you are only showing up for the person who is looking at this chocolate cake. And that's why expanding is always a good idea. The person who's interested in chocolate cake also probably interested in banana pudding. Like, don't get stuck in a tiny corner. But if you have enough ideas, and you should have enough ideas if you're going to pursue a niche, if you have enough ideas to build out a corner of your niche, that's made things faster in terms of growth for us.
Perfect. Great answer. So many people coming from SEO specifically have the idea of topical authority drilled into their heads, right? You referenced it, the swimming pool example. And it sounds like thinking about the user is what's important, but it's less about Pinterest putting you in a box and saying, you're just a swimming pool account here, so you can't publish anything else. It's not Pinterest that's limiting you. It's the fact that a user who's looking at swimming pool content is much further from the same user being interested in chocolate cake, but a user that's interested in chocolate cake has other interests, and you should think that way and expand into those related niches.
Absolutely. And you will talk to a lot of people who say, oh, well, I've published in in home decor for years. And then I tried publishing food, and I couldn't get Pinterest to even look at my food stuff. You'll get people who say that. They aren't able to switch niches. That is either a function of they're doing it poorly, or the thing they've added is so niche. It was never going to compete with the thing they were doing to begin with. Or the other way, they had something that was so niche. They really have put in time and effort, and they have grown that nicheness so that Pinterest knows that where to put their pins. They know where to distribute these. And these niche users aren't actually engaging with the less niche thing. Like when I say very niche, I'm talking like clay crafting. Okay, like you there's like this whole there's a whole niche around just like making tiny things out of clay. I'm guessing that those users are super into that, and they will save thousands of pins about that. They might not engage with anything else on Pinterest. And so the user and who the user is, if you've got a really strong account in that space, if it's very niche, your user can kind of pigeonhole your account. But I don't think it's something Pinterest has done to you.
Okay. Yeah, well, we see that in so many areas, right? It's like, SEO doesn't work. It's like, oh, well, take a look. And it's like, well, it's not working because you're not doing it right. Know, doesn't mean it doesn't work. It could mean it doesn't work, but it's definitely not going to work here. And, we could apply that to other social media accounts and all that kind of stuff. Sure. Let me transition a bit, probably too soon for this account specifically, this Mediavine site, but you have a wealth of experience doing Pinterest for 10 years now. So surely you've seen this in other circumstances, and I want to ask about it. And that's plateauing. And that's when your account, you continue to publish new content, you continue to create new pins, you continue to focus on both evergreen, seasonal, et cetera, but you're just not getting that traction anymore. It's not that you're declining. It's not that your account is losing significant amounts of traffic or anything, but you're not getting any sort of necessary measurable growth out of it. How often does this happen? When you see it happen, what are some techniques to help get your account? I mean, I don't know if the word is unstuck, but to get that account growing again.
I don't know if I've ever seen an account that it doesn't happen to. I think that nothing goes up and up and up forever. I think that because Pinterest has so many fewer users than Google, and Pinterest is always changing, things about their platform. We are always fighting upstream. Stable is a fantastic place to be on Pinterest. And if you're not declining, get stable. And then ask yourself, okay, what am I going to do with this traffic to make more money with every user, rather than think that more users is the only way to make more money, because that's not true. And the people who are only monetizing via traffic, and I say this like full disclosure, my sites on Pinterest are only monetized really well via traffic. I grew my entire I'll teach you Pinterest business. I grew that with the traffic to an unrelated website. I was just like, well, I'm going to have to figure out how to grow this somehow. I edited up my blog posts, the ones that were getting big traffic, to say things like, well, look, I make money on Pinterest. Want me to teach how to do it too? And I decided to take those users off of the platform and put them on an email list or in a Facebook group or whatever, where I could communicate with them directly. Because you only need 1,000 engaged people to make a full-time income. You don't need more and more and more traffic. So I believe that most sites will plateau, and I believe that most creators will just spiral about it. I also think that, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to do the thing I said, then the way to break the glass ceiling, the only way that I've ever found to be particularly effective, is niching out. Maybe you have reached the people you are going to reach with the content, the way you are going to create it, with the keywords, the way you are going to find them. Maybe you've taken that as far as you are going to, and using new keywords, targeting new users, reaching new corners of Pinterest, is going to be the way. And when I say new keywords, I mean, if you're doing chocolate cake, then just adding chocolate cookies, that's not the new I'm talking about.
Good clarity. I'm glad you clarified, though.
Okay. Great. Yeah, that plateauing is, I think it's a natural part of being on Pinterest.
Yeah. To your point, like when I talk with people about Pinterest, plateauing comes up consistently. You've talked about how the content you're creating for this specific Mediavine site is all human created. Obviously, AI is here, and people are using it to create content, and they are using it to create content on Pinterest. We could probably spend several podcasts talking about it. I know you guys have talked about it on your podcast, which I do recommend people go give a listen to. I've listened to many episodes, and it's very good.
Thank you.
It's very good. But like, let's wade into this topic. I guess I will ask at a high level from a perspective of Pinterest and where you think that they might be looking at AI pins and AI content. How should a content creator approach this, and how should they approach it in a way that that kind of takes into consideration all that's on the table?
I don't think Pinterest themselves is currently particularly concerned about AI content. I think that any company out there that reaches people online, including our own companies, our own selves, if we're creating content, we need to think about the future, and we need to think about the implications of AI content, and we need to think about the unpredictable ways that people will respond to AI content. We don't know if people are going to embrace it fully. I mean, right now, I think if you talked to some people, they'd say, oh, everybody's already embraced AI content. I'd argue, lots of people don't know that's AI content. Give them a chance to learn about it. I personally hate AI content for my kids. I hate it for my parents. I hate it for anyone who doesn't know what it is. I think that it's until you've disclosed AI content as AI content, it's a lie. And once it's disclosed as AI content, then it's up to the person who's viewing it to decide how they feel about it. I think that Pinterest is taking steps towards showing people what is AI content and what's not AI content, but they're not doing perfectly yet. And nowhere have they said, just because it's AI content, it means we're not going to distribute it. They've not said that. They've said, we are going to give users the chance to tell us whether or not they personally want to see AI content or not. We don't know how that's going to play out.
Right.
And so because I don't like AI for my kids and I don't like AI for my parents, because I don't want it, I'm not using AI. I also feel for established creators, both the ones like me who started to make money and who just don't like AI, don't want to use it, but also for the ones who've genuinely spent decades of their lives creating and I mean, really depends who you ask, but you'll see people saying like, well, they're just mad. They're just sad. I mean, well, of course they're mad and sad because the thing they're doing, the thing they're passionate about, like robots are replacing them. It's normal to be sad about that. So when I started the Mediavine site, part of the reason that we did it the way we did it was to prove that it could still be done with human created content. And to determine what investment would it take, and starting a site at any time in the past decade has required investment, whether it was time or money. Like there's no such thing as until AI, just snap your fingers and get a website. That didn't exist. So to determine, what is the current investment requirement, I actually think we could have grown the site for a lot less than 10,000. But because right now we don't know, this is where I was going with this, because right now we don't know how the AI thing is going to shake out. I think that we should approach it cautiously. If you're going to embrace AI and use AI on Pinterest, I think that we should approach it making sure that the AI that we put out there has value for the end user. That's where content lives and dies. Is there value for the user? And if there is value for the user, it's very unlikely that Pinterest is ever going to say, no, we're not going to have any AI. They're not going to shut down something that is valuable for the user. And if it's spam, there's a very good chance Pinterest will shut it down, just like always. Right. I mean, there's always spammers that get through, but there's always been an ongoing war against spam.
Yeah, and if you've been living under a rock, obviously this is quite the flashpoint in its current state, and so I think it's worth addressing, but also worth saying that like there's so much more underneath all that. Obviously, and so we can just leave that there. But it's important to address it because AI is not something that we can just kind of pretend isn't a factor on Pinterest these days, right? So I just wanted to ask you about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a big factor.
We do use AI for our text content on Pinterest because we have like a description. Like I don't think Pinterest is neither here nor there if you write your 3-sentence description or if AI writes your 3-sentence description. And that's not the kind of thing they're flagging. It's important to differentiate that right now. When they're talking about labeling things as AI modified on Pinterest, they're talking about images.
And images or designs that use AI images or that, synonymous with the same thing.
Yeah.
Good clarity. Transitioning into 2025, and what are you seeing holistically across the board, or unique things that have become this year, that have entered this year to becoming to start working? Sorry, I was tripping my words. Working in 2025, and what are you seeing? Whether it's something new or whether it's something that has been working for many years, that maybe people who are new to Pinterest don't know or don't understand.
Pinterest recently did a massive algorithm update. And when I say recently, I mean like in the last 2 months-ish. Now, they are not looking at the users past 100 engagements. They're looking at the users past 16,000 engagements.
Wow.
And it's a big change. It's not a small change. And so it's difficult right now, because this is such a new change, to say like exactly how this is going to affect us. But one of my early thoughts is that content should become it should have even more longevity than it had in the past. Good content. Because if people were engaging heavily with your pin a year ago and it was seasonal, then it just died out. And now Pinterest is only looking back at 100 interactions. They're going to be seeing those interactions on that pin a year ago, and if it was enough interactions from enough people, we could start to see a longer lifespan on pins. That is a big thing for me to say out loud, but
boy, that would be wonderful.
Wouldn't that be exciting? And I mean, I have pins from 2018, 2019 that's in traffic. So it's not like the lifespan is short right now, but even longer. I wouldn't say no to that. We could see seasonality be even more noticeable. Like right now, we think of Pinterest as a very seasonal platform. It's extremely difficult to maintain great traffic through Q4 if you don't have Q4 content. Even if you're Evergreen, it's hard, and you certainly will not grow an Evergreen site. Like that's where we're looking at stable. We're like, oh, we're happy to be stable in Q4 without seasonal content because the platform's so seasonal. But it could become even more seasonal because that was actually something that they highlighted in their article about this update, was that people who engage with Halloween pins, for example, coming up, those same people, they're finding patterns are likely to be the people who engaged with July 4th content. They in a certain kind of, or whatever, right. They find these patterns. And so they're not relearning every season for every person. They're starting to make predictions based, and they're saying that could have even more pronounced seasonal traffic effects because they'll know to start rolling out those July 4th pins next year for the person who engaged with Halloween this year. Whereas in the past, as far as I understand, they would have really struggled to make any connection between July 4th and Halloween because those don't have relationship. So that could be just, I mean, whether seasonality is positive or not positive, if we lean into it as positive, it could be positive. I mean, if I can make $20,000 in December and then I still only make 2 or 3 in January, February, well, that's okay. If we know to plan for that,
Yeah.
that's great. So I think that that's something that we should keep our eye on. And usually in these conversations, when we talk about what's changing on Pinterest this year, one of the things that's come up over and over again since Pinterest had its IPO is the shopping recommendations and
Yeah.
the push towards shopping. And for the past 6 years, every year I've gone into the year thinking like, well, this is the year that Pinterest destroys the platform so that people can shop. That's never been true. Pinterest wants to make the platform more shoppable. They don't want to burn down their business in their pursuit of shoppability. So there are certain sets of keywords, certain niches maybe that become less and less promising for traffic. There are all kinds of keywords and niches that really haven't been too affected by shopping. And I don't see that changing in 2025. I don't think that they're gonna throw away what they have. They got investors to make oh my goodness, to please. They've got investors to please. They can't just flip a switch and change their business model completely.
It's fascinating what you brought up. I mean, it's so interesting with Pinterest being such a seasonal site that they've only been looking at the last 100 kind of engagements, interactions, because if what I'm doing is so seasonal based, it almost feels like you're only getting data on what that season of my interest had. I mean, 100 interactions. I mean, my goodness, I think my wife could do that in a quick evening after the kids go to bed. That's such a limited amount. And I agree with you. Not being a Pinterest expert like you, but still being familiar with the platform, that could really change everything, depending on how they actually use all that data.
Yeah, and the longer term that we are on Pinterest, I'm hopeful the more benefit that this particular algorithm update will have for us, because it looks further back in the past. And the more patient that I think we'll probably need to be as we are growing. One of the things that Tony and I have briefly talked about could be an implication of this is that new accounts might take longer to gain traction because old accounts will have more engagement, more data behind them. There will be a fine line for Pinterest to walk between like, oh, this is so reliable with all this engagement history, and this is new and fresh. We don't know how they'll approach that yet, but it wouldn't be surprising if new accounts take a little more time.
Yeah. What is a reasonable ceiling for someone publishing on Pinterest to expect? And I know that's niche dependent. I know it's dependent on age. I know it's dependent on how much you're publishing. I do totally get that. But I wanted to ask the question anyways, just because that's going to be something that people are thinking about. I asked about plateauing earlier. You said every account's going to plateau. You said, hey, stability is as high of a priority as growth these days. And so I just wanted to kind of ask the broader question of like, what should people from a high level have as expectations going into this? I mean, are the accounts that can drive 1 million visits to your website a month kind of not something that people should have their eyes set on? What are expectations, reasonably speaking?
1 million visits a month is very unrealistic for the average person. And it's only going to become more unrealistic as AI makes content cheap. It's already cheap, but as people figure out how to make good content with AI, it's got to be good. There are very, very few niches already where there would be 1 million. I know you've had Tony on the podcast before, And I guessed his niche in 3 guesses after I heard his traffic before I ever met him, because there's not that many niches that can get that kind of traffic, in my opinion. If you're in,
That's fascinating. Proving I don't know the intricacies of Pinterest like you do, because when I heard his niche, I was kind of like, "What? Really?" But yeah,
yeah,
to your point,
yeah,
you know the traffic as it relates, and you're right. Like that's very hard to accomplish depending on what niche you're in.
yeah, yeah. I then again, on the flip side of that, I would say, the easier the niche, the more traffic, the easier on Pinterest. So that if you look at the top 10 Pinterest niches or whatever, they're going to be highly visual. You've got food, that's very visual, and the things that require a click through, right?
Yeah.
Food, beauty, fashion. These are visual niches, and people click through to see what's on the other side. Home decor, DIY, and crafts. People want to know how to do these things. These are visual. When I talk about niches that are very difficult on Pinterest, they're usually the things that are like, they're not visual, but they're also super niche, and the things you're going to read about, and not, they don't have any pictures. Then there's this like a middle ground, which I would say is like things that affect everybody, but they're not that visual, like relationships and personal finance, because most people have a relationship at some point in their life. Most people have money or don't have money, which makes personal finance an issue for them. And so these 2 particular niches, I think, are really good baselines for where people should expect traffic to be able to get to, because they're not as easy as the visual ones, and they're not as hard as these super obscure things. And I have a friend in personal finance who, with, I think she's probably been doing 7 good hard years on Pinterest. She's getting 200,000 to 300,000 clicks a month from Pinterest, and that's in a niche that I would say, like, that's hard. So if you're in one of those super visual niches, the top 10 Pinterest niches, super visual, really the click and the user intent for seeing and reading both, when that lines up, it should not be too much of a stretch to get to 200, 300,000 page views. For personal finance, like I said, relationships, she's worked really hard for 6 years, and that's where she is. I would say for the average person who hasn't dedicated 6 years to this yet, maybe in those niches you should expect 50,000 page views to 100. It's like, and I mean, these are such ballpark numbers. For the really obscure niches, like ferrets, maybe you have a site about ferrets.
That comes up on the podcast every now and then again. That's a good one.
Okay, funny. I didn't know that. I didn't research that first, but I mean, like, if we compare ferrets to dogs or cats, and you think about the amount of people that have ferrets versus dogs and cats, you should maybe only expect 5,000 to 10,000 pages a month for ferrets, and triple, quadruple that for dogs and cats. So it is really niche dependent. There's such a vast scale that we could talk about it, and no matter where you fall on that scale, I think the important thing to remember is, what are you going to do with that user after you get them? Pinterest is a means to an end, so really be thinking about what that end is. For me, I don't spend a lot of time driving people off my sites anymore. I have started an email list for the Mediavine site. We're going to see how that goes. Right now, I'm struggling with click rates, but it's my first year in the niche, so maybe that's normal. For me, I've made a very conscious decision that when Pinterest is done, I'll be done online. But if you're somebody who's growing a business online, then don't let those clicks from Pinterest go to waste.
Right. Well, we talk on here a lot about, we have a lot of guests that we interview are like, hey, traffic is always fickle, and the more you can take traffic that you're getting from different sources and move it onto something. I mean, obviously an email platform is the easiest one to think about, and move it into something where you can continually interact with them without the need for something like a Pinterest to send you that traffic. Then long term, of course, we could all just have your mentality. And when, in this case, Pinterest stops, we stop. That's it. Mic drop, walk away.
I think that I understand why that's a difficult attitude to have. It's just, This all just happened to me by accident, and I will not, I won't let it ruin my life when it's over.
Yeah. Perhaps a healthy perspective, given just so many examples of how hard platform change has been on so many people and is going to continue to be on so many people. I mean, we're in essence, whether we're talking about SEO, we're talking about Pinterest, we're talking about Facebook, we're talking about any social media account, and the list goes on. We are on borrowed land. We're borrowing these platforms. We're giving them content. We're giving them what they need. And in exchange, we get something that we need. And so, but it's not under our control.
No, that said, I think I said it at the beginning before we started recording. I every year in my business so far, I've been like, this is the last year. There's no way that we're going to make it to the end of this year that people are still going to be using Pinterest the way they were at the beginning of the year. Look at the things Pinterest is changing. And I don't think about it that way anymore. I actually don't think that Pinterest will quit that way. I think eventually I'll be like, I don't want to learn the new way again. And that'll be on me. So, but this year I've had a lot of fun learning the new way.
I think it's great. That hour flew by. Boy, I got through about half of the questions on my list here, but that's okay. That was wonderful. I've wanted to have you on the podcast for quite a while now because, you've been someone who, and again, to go full circle on it, and we kind of closed on such a good topic because you've been someone who has shown up to Pinterest for 10 years now and every year made it work. And I just do think that in a industry and in a content creation world where sometimes doom and gloom does lead, where sometimes people do feel very frustrated by efforts they put in and then watching something that they used to get a lot of traffic from or a lot of return from, they watch that dwindle. And it is very frustrating. At the same time, having you on is a good reminder that, you keep showing up to Pinterest, you keep adapting your strategy. It's not like you just sit still, but for 10 years straight, it's been your revenue producer and a really big thing for you. So it's such a good kind of full circle reminder and encouragement to everybody listening. Like there's plenty of frustration and doom and gloom out there, but there's also, I think, what we can learn from what you've shared this hour is there's also a lot of reason to be excited about what a platform like Pinterest is giving.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And thank you so much for having me and letting me talk about Pinterest. It's this weird passion that I have, and I could talk about Pinterest forever. I'm sorry that we didn't get through through most of your questions, but
it's not your fault. I always have a lot of questions. That's a sign of a good guest. Is if you're good, I'd never get through all my questions. So, Hey, where can people follow along with you? I highly recommend the podcast. Definitely talk about that. But where are different places people can follow along or learn more?
There aren't a ton of places. I have a Facebook group called Blogging Like We Mean It, and we're in there. Sometimes there's a way to get on my email list in there. Or, actually, I made a new website, carlycampbell.co, and there's links on there.
I saw that. I didn't know if that was what you want to promote, but I'm on that right now. So yeah, there's links to the podcast, your course, and a couple of other things there. So, well, hey, this has been great. Carly, thank you so much for coming by. Really appreciate all that you shared. It was great to talk Pinterest. And until we talk again, be well.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. Are you adding a new internal link pointing to each article you publish? You should be. Ever find it time-consuming and a bit overwhelming? Remembering what content you published and deciding which anchor text to use can be a real headache. What if there was a better way? Well, that's exactly why I created Link Whisper. Simply click Add Inbound Internal Links, and Link Whisper will scan your site in seconds and suggest the most relevant links with appropriate anchor text for your new article. Now simply check the box next to the internal links you want to add, and Link Whisper will add these links for you. No need to go into each article, edit, and add the link. It's already done. No more manual internal link building or guesswork. Just efficient, accurate linking that saves you time and improves your SEO. Transform your content strategy with Link Whisper. Start linking smarter, not harder. Use the coupon code PODCAST for $15 off. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use coupon code PODCAST to get $15 off.